company.
Allowed them to create syrup at a low cost.
Okay.
They didn't actually bottle and carbonate all the liquid there, but I think they just sent the syrup off for later production somewhere in the United States. But they had coal-fired engines downstairs, and they had to get the smoke out. So they trucked it out up 30 feet. Well, not really trucked it out. They kind of moved it out and then into the smokestack, and then it rose out the top.
So that's why the smokestack goes down through the building all the way. And that's cool.
Yep.
All right, so now let's just go back to how I normally start. Have you two known each other for a while? Or
we have.
How, what were you doing before you decided to start Diamondback?
Well, we met each other in high school, and then obviously maintained friendship throughout college. And then I was personally living out west when we were actually developing the business. But Tom can speak to a little bit more about what he was doing.
So, like, we have another partner, Francis, who is not here today, but we went to college.
Is he afraid of the weather?
He's afraid of a lot of things, but he just couldn't be here today, so it's just me and Colin. But Francis and I went to college together at University of Maryland, and he also went to high school with us too. But that's where we kind of got into the brewing scene a little bit, and we saw a really good opportunity in Baltimore because, like you said, there's not really a lot of breweries in the city, like walkable. A lot of them are kind of like in weird industrial places.
Yeah, they're on
outside
the outskirts in your typical industrial park type.
So we saw that opportunity, and we were really getting into beer and enjoying making it, and so we kind of sat down sort of jokingly, and we're like, why don't we just come up with an idea for a brewery?
Were you drunk during that first
time?
Probably,
yeah. Drunk a lot in college, but like it kind of just snowballed and like one accomplishment after another, and we sort of kind of just wound up deciding to get into it, and we really raised money and stuff and found a location in Baltimore that we loved, and it worked out pretty well for us.
So I'm guessing the name Diamondback comes from you meeting at the University of Maryland.
Yeah, we wanted a name that was like Maryland-esque, but not like in-your-face Maryland, and so that was kind of like a underhanded kind of reference.
I'm pretty sure the only way you could get more Maryland is if you just named it Maryland Brewing Company.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Some people are like, oh, you guys from Arizona or something, or you guys like riding bikes and stuff. So it kind of has more than you'd think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really into Walmart bikes.
Yeah. I don't recommend taking those to Patapsco or anything. But yeah, it's not too much in your face, Maryland. I think when people actually see it, they realize what the state turtle is of Maryland, and then what the actual mascot is of University of Maryland. So they put two and two together and they figure it out. But the logo isn't necessarily indicative of a turtle itself, so it takes a little bit of thought. But we love the name. Yeah,
it's a great name, and I guess living in Maryland, it was obvious that that's what it was an ode to. And then actually, once you mentioned going to the University of Maryland, then it's even more obvious that that's why you chose.
That's correct. So
did you start straight out of college? That's what you started?
Probably about a year. I mean, actual production was about a year to a year and a half after college. We started developing the business in 2011 or so. So brewing and developing recipes, and actually, okay, Tom, you're good at this. Fran, you have a specialty with this. Colin, you can do this. And then from there, it just kind of developed into, okay, we're making good beer. And like Tom said, you're just kind of hitting benchmarks along the way. And so technically launched in November of 14.
Yeah, I think that was right.
But yeah, while I was living out west, we would just get together, what's our logo, licensing, and then exactly how we're going to launch the company and when we would do it. So it took, from 2011 until 14, so we planned for probably 3 years or so, just like a lot of people do. And the fact that you were still in college at the time, so we weren't going to launch a brewery when we were in college. I had to graduate before we actually got out there. But 2014 was the launch time on that one.
So what did you go to school for?
I was business, poli-sci.
Which comes in handy.
It's there's a little bit of politics in beer, especially nowadays.
I was just talking to one of our reporters today. This year's has the makings of being even more fireworks than last year with the bombs that are already being thrown from each side of the political aisle.
We could talk about that at length for a while. I think once they go into session on January 10th, it's going to all hell's going to break loose in a way if they don't control it. But
yeah,
there's a lot of people that are chomping at the bit to get this situation figured out. But yeah, so 2014 was kind of the go into it. So,
what did you major in, Tom?
I was economics, so sort of in the same vein as business, but our partner Francis was engineering, so that was like a nice crutch to rely on as we were doing the build out and sourcing like the brew equipment and stuff like that, because he really has a better understanding of the actual science and mechanics behind it, whereas we're just like, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, yeah, get that one.
We weigh on a little bit, but his mechanical engineering background is definitely helpful when it comes to mastering that system, and then also tinkering with a few other installments we've had lately. So
yeah, no matter how much of your setup you've purchased, you're still doing plenty of your own fabrication and fixing. And
yeah, it wasn't a all package coming into the brewery. We were still getting pre-milled grain for a while there, until recently we installed a grain mill to actually start milling in. So that should be a fun part of the business there.
So let's take a quick break to talk about what we're drinking right now, because this is really just a perfect sit-around drinking beer.
Yeah.
This is Omar. So this beer has been around for a couple of years now. Once we opened up our own spot, we actually tinkered with the recipe a little bit more. So all Maryland oats from Dark Cloud Malt House. And
I've been hearing their name a lot lately.
Yeah. They're got a wait list now or so. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they
how early on was this recipe developed?
I mean, it's changed a lot. Like
Okay.
it was one of those kind of like beat around recipes where you brew it and you try it and then you brew it again and again and again, and it sort of has fallen into a staple recipe for us now. I'd say maybe it took a year of tinkering to kind of figure out what we wanted to do with it, and then when we opened up our space in Baltimore, we kind of had a certain image of and a certain idea of a beer style that we wanted to do, and we have our house yeast strain that we use across the board for all of our ales and IPAs, and it lends a lot of interesting esters and characters to the Omar that I personally really enjoy.
So you have your own specialized yeast strain that you use?
I mean, every brewery pretty much has their own house yeast strain that they use in the majority of their beers. So Scott Van Spelt, Omar, Green Machine, any IPA that we put out is our house yeast strain, or even the stouts we use on the house yeast strain.
Yeah,
if you go Belgian, if we're going lagering, we're going to tinker with a different style of yeast. But this beer is, I think it's one of those ones that hides in the shadow of Green Machine so much, because you need some more, bud?
I do, yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
It hides in the shadow a little bit because it doesn't burst with citrus necessarily.
Yeah.
It has a little bit more of that soft mouth feel, rounder nose, kicking with a little bit of candy, I think, from the El Dorado, versus the Green Machine that really kicks in with some Citra and Ella in it, that has much more of that citrus nose to it. But if I had my choice, I would drink Omar over Green Machine a lot of the time. It's just such an awesome crushable beer, and they're the same ABV. So when you're drinking them, there might be different flavor profiles, but you're not switching up on the alcohol at all.
Is Green Machine your number one seller?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. It's the one that we brew the most of. It's the one that has the most demand. I mean, when you look at breweries around, who has, what's their staple? What are people talking about with their beer? It just kind of puts the mark on their name, and that's the Green Machine right there.
Yeah.
So who do you collaborate on your recipe development now, or is it mainly you, Tom, as the head brewer that's what you're focusing on that?
Like, I run a pretty collaborative production side to the business. Like, I like having people's inputs, and like the Scott Van Spelt was actually a collaboration between everybody that works at the company. And so, I have one guy, Dave, that works with me down there, and then I have a cellar guy that we're training now, Taylor. And so it's just kind of, we beat an idea around, and then we've brewed so many beers now that you can kind of go back and look at certain beers that you really enjoyed, and like, what did I like from this, and I want to do in a new beer. And so when we do like a Scott Van Spelt, per se, we take like a base recipe, and you try out hops that you maybe liked, or new hops that have come on the market and are pretty hot right now. And so it's just a little bit of tinkering.
So do you guys have your main cores, or how many different beers do you typically have on tap in your tap room?
Right now it's 7. We were about 2 weeks ago. We were at close to, we had 10 we could have on, but we only have 8 taps, so we can actually occupy at any time. The 2 beers that we make consistently are Green Machine and Omar. Though we don't make anything else that's necessarily in the core. We talked about playing with a third, but right now that's just more in the works and more talking about for 2018 to get something more in the lineup. But with only 5 fermenters downstairs and an 8.5 barrel system, we like to be able to tinker a lot with a bunch of different recipes. It's a lot to be said to make a lot of a beer and make a good chunk of change on it and be able to reinvest that into other parts of the brewery. But I think what's the most fun for what I see in Tom and Dave and Taylor and the production side of things is being able to be creative, keep you on your toes, and actually be able to have something new on tap in the tap room 2 to 3 times a month, and then be able to launch something to the market that's fresh all the time.
And it gives people incentive to keep coming back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, obviously there's people are going to come back because they like Green Machine or Omar and they want to have some of that. But when you have that rotating freshness that people, like, especially in, I think, I don't have to tell you guys, the craft beer aficionados are always searching for that next beer to try. Sure. No matter how close it is to the one they just had yesterday, they still want to try that new one.
There's always something a little bit different in it. And we want to drink something different all the time. Like, we don't want to be drinking the same base recipe with a hop change up a little bit, you know?
So many people do that nowadays. It's like, oh, new triple IPA just coming out. It's like, oh, this is our same beer, but we changed the hops. Like, that's cool and all, but, like, try a little bit harder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I do like when breweries have, like, they choose a specific recipe and they keep the same malt bill and, like that beer's designed for that, where they release it once and it's like either just Citra or it has Citra as the focal point.
Yeah. The
next time it comes out, it's the same malt bill, but then it's Simcoe is the feature or
Hill Farmstead's running that right now. They're doing their single hop series.
Yeah.
I think they just released Mosaic today. So they keep that same base recipe, and they're able to switch up that hop each time. I think they have a little bit more ability to play around with things than we necessarily do on the canning side and on the production side. But, to your point, that's certainly an awesome advantage for companies to be able to do.
Yeah, I like when people do that, but I think what you may have been talking more is like when it's kind of hidden.
Yeah.
Where it's just talked about as it's the newest thing, but really it's just a slight
play on the novelty factor
Okay.
instead of like actually
putting thought and planning into it.
Yes.
So I want to take a real quick break to thank Roasthouse Pub one more time and to talk about one of my favorite things they do is their beer dinners, which you guys absolutely need to talk to Nico about doing. Because this month is with Kushwa and
good company.
Those guys are great and they're making amazing beer. But on the 30th, January 30th, they'll be doing a beer dinner at Roasthouse Pub. Tickets should be available by the end of the week. And keep your eyes open. We will be having a contest to give away 2 or 3 pairs of tickets to Uncapped listeners. Then on January 18th, Oliver's Brewing is having their 28th birthday bash, or 25th, sorry, not 28th. But apparently they're the oldest brewery or production brewery in Maryland. I didn't know that.
I did not know they were that old.
And then January 25th is Mom's Spaghetti Dinner night again, where it'll be our friends at Monocacy Brewing knocked off Monument City on their run last month.
Man.
So
the Western boys.
Yeah.
Knocking them down, holding their turf.
I've been told that the challenger still has not been chosen yet. So
is this the beer knocking it out, or is this the actual spaghetti sauce knocking it down?
Well, so that was how it was originally.
Okay, because I got a mean spaghetti sauce.
I mean, you could talk to Nico about that.
Okay.
But now it's mainly it's based on a survey done at the end of the evening. Like people choose which beer they chose the best. So it's crowd voting that chooses who the winner is. Sure. I guess there were some bad feelings about people's mom's spaghetti recipe losing. So
don't be talking about my mom.
Yeah.
Right?
So now it's just based on people voting on which beers.
Which Monocacy beer knocked off Monument?
Well, I think it's typically done with 3 different beers.
Okay.
And Why'd you have to ask an actual question?
Oh, man. See, that I was returning it to you.
That is not fair. I did not sign up to be asked questions.
That's your editing you have to do. All right, back to your show.
So, if you guys want to, definitely reach out to Nico. You could be the challenger to knock off Monocacy.
Okay.
Cool.
And they have some special IPAs and stuff out now that might be able to give you guys a run for the money.
Okay.
But I believe they had Brutus and a couple. I think Radiant. Radiance was one of the beers they had. Brutus and a couple and one other one, but I can't remember. So if you want to be the challenger,
I'm going to leave that one open-ended right now. I'm not going to commit myself or make any promises at this moment, but 2018 definitely has a lot in store, so we could probably put that in the plan at some point. Talk to the guys out at once and get some beer out to them and get it over to Roasthouse.
Yes, let's do that. So everyone, keep your eyes open on the Facebook page. I'll be posting up how to win tickets to the Cushwa Beer Dinner, and always thank you, Roasthouse Pub, for your support. So when I first talked to you, you guys said you had some things coming up and in place that you wanted to do, that you wanted to be able to talk about. Mm-hmm. What are those things now?
We've got a lot for 2018 and beyond. I mean, we're really just trying to – I had this discussion yesterday with Zach Kaiser, who's our sales and marketing guru, and we just talked about like how we really want to set ourselves up. And also with if a company's young, they you kind of go through some motions and you go back and forth on a few things and you're really trying to find your groove. And I think 2017 was finding our groove. And 2018, we're really launching ourselves into a really cool moment for Diamondback, and also an awesome year that I think will definitely maybe up us in the game a little bit. So I think it's more on the production side of things. We haven't really said yes to we're going to up our production or we're going to add more fermenters, and we're certainly not buying a canning line anytime soon. But I think Tom might have a few things to talk about in terms of what we'd like to do up in the beer game too.
Now, production has been a struggle for you guys, though, right? With keeping up, keeping up with demand.
Yeah.
That, people really want your beer, and you've had trouble being able to keep up with the demand.
Sure. I mean, I think struggle might be a little bit. It's definitely a strong word to use. It's more about us really kind of running our pace. Craft beer is so competitive nowadays that if you try to run somebody else's race, or you get wrapped up in their set of goals or their business plan or their idea for their company or what they think the craft beer industry should do, then you kind of lose sight of your own. So we're just trying to stay intact with everybody else in the market, but also focus on what happens inside the walls of Diamondback as well.
Yeah, I guess the way I put it, more to say is that you quickly sell everything you make. And I can't remember what, I was watching an interview with someone recently, and they were talking about brewery expansions, and they were equating it to Silicon Valley and how quickly a software company can grow and thing, and because there aren't physical goods you're buying, or they're small, but to expand a brewery to meet immediate demand that may or may not be there in the future, you have to spend a lot of money to
and
meet
it's not
that.
Just staff, it's capital
investment.
Yeah,
you're spending tons and tons of money on a lot of stainless steel.
You are,
so it makes more sense to kind of make sure that that's where you need to go, instead of just jump. Hey, we just sold a whole bunch. We better.
Yeah. And like Colin was saying, 2017 was finding our groove. In terms of a company, it was also similar on the production side. That was our first year on the brew deck using a system that we've never used before. And so 2018 is trying to kind of take it to the next level and start doing some of these crazier beer styles. We have a Voss in the works, which is basically we got 200 pounds of bread from Atwater's and we toasted it, and we're going to make one tomorrow. And so we'll do that. We're going to do some lagers that we've kind of never really brewed before, but we want to take it to that next level. And then,
so is that used completely in place of grain, or is it just big part of the malt bill.
It's a big part of it. We'll probably put in maybe like another 150 to 200 pounds of just base malt to kind of get a little bit of ABV from it. But it's a pretty big chunk of it.
So how hard is it now to come up with creative things like that to do that other people aren't doing, that aren't just a gimmick that...
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want to be gimmicky.
Yeah, you don't want to throw
it's so
fried
obvious.
chicken
exactly.
into...
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's challenging, but like I said, we work a really collaborative production side, so it's not just like me sitting in a dark room trying to rack my brain for ideas. It's like there's
definitely
there's three other people that have say in the production side of things, and like Colin can come down to me and be like, Tom, I want to do this. This seems like an interesting idea, and I'll listen to him. You know, it's not like just whatever I say has to go.
Unless he tells you to throw some...
Unless he says fried chicken, he's going to have to leave, but...
No, it is true, because Zach and I are out in the market so much, and fortunately and unfortunately, you can really see what is being put out nationwide via Instagram.
Yeah.
And you can see where people are tinkering with things. The milkshake movement. You've got people adding fried chicken to a beer. The IPAs. You certainly don't see a Voss coming out by anybody. And then also on the lager side,
I've never even heard of that before.
Yeah, well, it's not. I don't think it's something you'd want to do on like a 15 or 20 or a 30 barrel system. I think on our 8.5, we can single batch, and just mess around with it, and see where it might go. That was to your collaboration part as well. I mean, I think that was a little bit more fun to be able to call up Atwater's. We hit up Spike over. With his group at Woodbury Kitchen, just to see what sort of bread they would have. Everybody has stale bread, but Atwater's was like, no problem, we'll store it aside for 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So we went and picked up a couple hundred pounds.
So you got fresh stale bread.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Only the best.
Borderline cut it up and eat it, put some butter on it. You might need to dip that in some spaghetti sauce. But for the most part, it was stale. And then we stored it, and then we actually had some help toasting it. So shout out to the Brick and Fire people that helped us toast that bread. Jesse, you stuck in there, man. But that's definitely a fun one. I think that what I'm most excited about, lagers definitely don't sell as well as IPAs will. But through some inspiration in our trip in August, and also looking at developing more of a creative side of the brewery, it's really fun to watch and taste a lager develop. And Tom and Dave and Taylor downstairs certainly enjoy that as well. This 2-week turnaround on ales and on IPAs is easy, and it's efficient, and it gets a fermenter empty and opens it up to a new beer. But what about more of the creative process that we can foster inside the brewery to sit there and taste that lager to develop? And really mature, and then when we're ready, and be proud to put that out there. And also to that end, there's a lot of articles out there that say there is a little bit of a resurgence of lagers coming out. People are dry hopping them nowadays. They're adding some adjuncts to them, but without really muddling the tradition of a lager.
Do you and it kind of you see a little bit of a trend, and how much do you feel like it's going to take off where like the classic styles like that coming back? Do you think that there's going to be a resurgence of that? Because I've seen more Kolsch's and Pilsners and lagers than ever before, where people say they're coming out with them, which is such a juxtaposition to your fruit juice beers or milkshake.
I mean, I think it starts at the brewery. Like, I think the resurgence that you're kind of seeing in some of these lagers is just the brewers like, I want to drink a lager. I've been drinking triple IPAs and sour bombs for 2 years now. I'm kind of sick of it. So, at least for me, like, I love brewing. We did a Zwickel beer, Keller beer kind of hybrid last spring or fall or something like that.
Yeah, it was spring, summer.
It was ridiculous. Like, it got crushed by all of us.
Yeah.
And
so good.
That's where it starts, and I think it's next goes to the consumer. It's like, how do you get the consumer on board with this trend too? Like, some people will drink them just because it's something a little different, but how do you evoke the same response from a lager as you do with these double IPAs? Like, that's, I think, the question that we as brewers have to figure out an answer to.
And I think that speaks a lot to, or transitions to, the education piece we like to have in 2018. and informing the consumer that comes into the tap room, managers out in the market who are buying beer, bartenders who are selling it, and also the people who are buying it at bars as well, that like, this is what this style of beer is, this is how we've brewed it, this is how we've nurtured it or to get it to the consumer, and not trying to change somebody's or look on what beer should be, or I just want an IPA, but more like just give it a try. Like, I think you're going to thoroughly enjoy this style of beer and mix it into the style of beers that you actually purchase, to kind of develop your palate a little bit.
I guess one thing that the resurgence of those styles helps with is like when you go to a brewery with a group of people and one of them doesn't like I can't think of any of the stereotypical things people will say that they don't like about beer, or they want.
Do you have anything light?
Or I want something that just tastes like beer. I guess would be probably the annoying thing that you might hear. But like those styles would be the things for people who want something that just tastes like beer.
Sure. Yeah, and like we have so many IPAs on tap that we get that all the time. It's like, I'm here with my mom. She doesn't like hoppy beers. Like, what can you give her? And you're like, oh, shit.
Sorry.
Just pick one.
That's why we have Ralph Nader on now.
Yeah.
But also why we're looking at what can we do to keep the tap list diverse, and not just all ales, because there are people who want to come in and drink lagers as well.
So, where did the name Omar come from? Now that this crowler's empty, and we'll move on to the next one.
Have you seen The Wire?
No, I haven't.
Okay. The Wire, that was an HBO show for a long time. David Simon produced that one. But the main character was Omar.
Okay.
And it was filmed in Baltimore. So when we started to develop this beer, we wanted a little bit of a shout out to Baltimore. So if anybody knows Omar the character, he's definitely a little bit of a gangster. He's definitely somebody who's rough and tumble, but he has a little bit of a soft side too. And I think that this beer accurately describes that. So yeah, there's not much more to it other than a character on The Wire.
That's still a good.
You need to go watch The Wire, Chris.
I've heard that quite a bit. I think Graham's Nope, never mind. Graham has not watched that.
Just canceled it.
I'm not giving you my Go password.
Yeah.
Which one do we want to open next? Because I will open and pour while you tell me about that beer.
Tom, I'm going to leave this one up to you. We've got Green Machine and Scott.
Why don't we do Scott? Because we'll do like a little bit of a change of pace here.
Yeah. There's not much left with this one.
Put mine over there.
Yeah, sure. No problem, buddy.
Yeah, so Scott was a collaboration, I guess, between pretty much everybody that works for the company.
Yeah.
Kind of put the ball in Colin and Zach court and was like, what do you guys want to do? And they came up with the idea for a spelt beer. We've never used it before. It's kind of like a raw wheat sort of product. And we didn't put a ton in. We probably, in retrospect, could have put a little bit more in the beer, but it definitely added sort of like a little maltier profile that is actually kind of similar to the Omar. It has Omar has the malted oats. This has the spelt. It kind of gives it like that earthy, a little bit of undertones that kind of supplement the hops a little bit.
I think we were sitting around we were all at our respective homes or wherever we were at the time, trying to come up with a name, normally like we do, where you're about a week out from launching a beer and you're like, what do we do? We didn't have to put a label on this beer or anything. It was just going in package. But we had to come up with some sort of name for it, obviously. So we just started spitting around names a little bit. And then if you know Scott Van Pelt, he went to University of Maryland. He's a longtime ESPN analyst or newscaster, I guess you can call him. And Zach Kaiser just said Scott Van Spelt, and right then you knew it. Like there was no debating this one. This was it. It rang so well. And when we launched that name out in the market, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, people were all over it. They loved the name, and with it being an IPA, and with from what I know, I mean, there's plenty of breweries that use spelt, but I think Gene up at Tired Hands definitely uses a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's people that use it like in massive quantities.
Yeah.
Like we literally threw 2 sacks in here.
Right, but actually, using it and specifically calling it a spelt IPA, was it gave us a good kickoff to the name.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, I was drinking it last night. I think it's really matured over the last.
It's developed a lot, and I think that seems to happen with a lot of our beers. Actually, it's like you drink it day one, and then you drink it 2 weeks later, and it's totally different beer.
Right. We advise keeping beers cold. Obviously, I think all beers should be stored cold, no matter where they are. But with this beer and with all of our beers, really, day one, people want to drink it fresh. They want to get that taste, and that's okay. I mean, if you're going to get a different flavor profile of the beer on day one than you would on week 2 or week 3, and I'm really enjoying this beer right now. I had one last night, and it just shone through really well.
So you mentioned like you and Keith. Did I get
Zach?
their name? Zach.
Yeah, he's probably watching right now.
Well,
he definitely is.
It's his
Yeah.
fault for not being here. Are out in the field the most.
Yep.
Do you look to the trends and what people are saying to guide what you're making, or do you just make what you want to make and hope that people are going to like it?
I mean, you got to sell. So, like, you look to a style first, and you say, these are the styles that people are asking for. I mean, Casey over at Max's will buy, a lot of different styles. He's got
really like this. This is good.
It's good. It's awesome. It's sold really well out in the market, and people are loving it, and then it sells well in the tap room. So name and actual taste of the beer, they line up well. So to your point, we do listen to trends. I don't think that dictates what we do with every style that we brew, and every style that we launch. And that's also the collaboration we come down. Tom will say, hey, what's selling out there? What are you guys seeing? What's moving across the nation? What's moving in Baltimore? Who's putting out what? And then he also has his ideas of, guys, I want to do, a lager this week. We want to do a Voss this month. We want to bring back this beer that we had, 6 months ago, because it caught a lot of traction. But I think that the styles that sell well, we have to keep producing. Green Machine, obviously, and then a variation of IPAs. But then we also have to stick to our guns on what we want to see, what we want to drink, and then what we would also like to be representing Diamondback as well out in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. So it's kind of simple in a way, but then actually executing a recipe, most of the time, I would say, 90% of the time, we're not tinkering with anything. In terms of like if we're bringing a beer back, or if we're launching something new. But if there is something that we didn't necessarily like about, Scott Van Spelt this go around, we might change it up a little bit next time, but not so drastically different that you'd have to rebrand it to something else. That was one of the issues with Omar, was that people were so hung up on the old style of it. They were like, oh yeah, I've had that. And we're like, well, you haven't had this recipe tweak on it. Would you like to try it? And they certainly loved it a lot more than the old style. But they also, it was right on that borderline where it was so much different versus like not that much different to us that we were like, should we rename it or should we just keep it the same? And we kept it, and people have definitely clung on to it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty or even think in Frederick, Flying Dog changed Snake Dog dramatically. They kept it, and it's the same name. So,
Yeah.
I think if you make something better,
Right.
and you already have a name you like, hey, stay with it.
Yeah.
At some point, you've already created a brand, so you have to keep running with it, and enlighten people and educate them. This is what we did differently. I'm sure there's many tweaks that breweries make, and they don't tell anybody. And they wait for either the market to notice, or they just kind of leave it the same and let the public either yeah, this is way different, or no, it's the same. It tastes great. This is awesome. So
I mean, we always joke about that too. Like, there's even changes between beer styles that you don't even intend. Like, we always joke in the brewery that like everybody always says this is the best batch of Green Machine yet, and like it's the same thing. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
But like there are subtleties that like the guys who brew the beer will pick up here and there and be like, yeah, it dried out a little bit more than it should have, or it didn't dry out as much. But the average consumer is probably never going to pick up those differences.
Yeah, that's I see that all the time.
Yeah.
I love that. Like this is where you see like it's usually on drinking groups on Facebook or often on Instagram. Which you mentioned, I can't believe I don't think I've ever talked to a brewery about Instagram and how they feel about that because
Yeah.
it seems like one of the most used social mediums by breweries for beer releases.
It's an adult picture book.
Yeah.
That constantly updates.
Well, it drives the can thing. The can craze is insane. Like, people will upload and be like, oh, got this can for my boy on the East Coast, and they're like out in Seattle, Washington or something, and it's cool, but I think it also kind of drives that mentality of like, why isn't this brewery putting out 16-ounce cans every Saturday? Like, why aren't they doing it? And so that's something that we've kind of struggled with is like, we don't want to do that. Like, we want to produce beer and have people come into the brewery and drink it in the best possible way it can be drank. And so that's like what we were talking about earlier with educating the consumer on the other side of the business. I think that's what we're trying to do.
So what do you think of line life and trading and all that whole subculture of craft beer?
I mean, with the craft beer industry booming in the United States, there's been a lot of talk. So a lot of people are like, the styles are changing a lot. So people are constantly being reinvigorated by a new style or a new chase or a new artwork, or, you know, this brewery's putting it out and a bunch of people are getting together to go and get the beer. But in some way or another, it's damaging to look at what some breweries are doing where, you know, they make fruited sours. And I'm not speaking about anybody specifically, but they might put it out and say, you know, refrigerate this immediately. Do not let it get warmer than X degree temperature.
Yeah, because it's going to ferment to the point that it explodes.
Right. So while the beer is delicious and while a minority of the market are keeping it cold all the time and drinking it pretty fresh, I don't think that that's something that we need to necessarily do with the craft beer industry. We're not doing it with Diamondback. We're not putting overly fruited sours inside of cans and then telling everybody to keep it cold and then keeping ourselves up at night worrying about having to buy all these cans back or issue refunds and whatnot, because that's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And that's not the mentality that we're trying to drive. And I'm kind of on the fence whether it's really damaging to the industry itself. I think it's fun to push the limit. And I think it's fun to get into not a dangerous part, but more like, man, this is a really good beer, but you know, we could have some problems with it. I don't know, you know. So like you push it a little bit, but is it necessary to really push it like that? We're certainly not going to do it, but to everybody else, I hope it doesn't ruin what we have going for us. And then line life, we've experienced it. We sold out hop broth in an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes.
That was actually one of the times I wanted to come out. I knew I wasn't going to make it in time to get any cans of it, but I wanted to at least try it on tap. But then
so we've done it, like we've experienced it, but we didn't really get the bug to keep it going. And we also don't have a canning line. So the headache of scheduling the canning with Tom and the companies who do the mobile canning was just something that we don't necessarily have to really deal with right now. We don't want to deal with this young in the company. We don't want to damage anything. So, and I think Tom can speak to that a little bit more. I don't want to hog the mic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with having the line life be a supplement to the business, but I don't see a need for it to be like the backbone. Like some companies, that's like their whole business plan is bolstered on the fact that they can sell $15,000 worth of cans every week, and that's cool. Like that's awesome for business, but like where does that get you? Like what's the difference between doing a double IPA this week and a double IPA the next week? It's like, why not do something different and try and educate these guys in the lines, like go out and hand out samples of something different and be like, this is just as good as this. Like you should be excited about this too. And so that's the challenge that we face, I feel like.
Was hop broth the only can you've done?
No, we've done
because you did a greener machine.
We throw a festival once a year and we can that one, and that's a double IPA that people are. We'll bring that back April 21st, I think, this year.
Yeah.
So we're scheduling. If there are any bands listening and you guys want to be a part of Greener Fest, let us know.
I know a band you could talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the members are sitting right outside.
Awesome. We'll talk to them after then.
Our theme music.
Okay. I mean, we've got that courtyard outside the brewery. As an aside, we have a courtyard outside the brewery that's going to be awesome for the Greener machine. But we've done Gone to November canning, hop broth, Ordering Chaos just over Thanksgiving break.
I think it was like 12 total for the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done them, but they're more, they were more frequent in the beginning of 17, and now they've kind of gone to more, every 2 to 3 months. So this month we are going to do a little variation of Green Machine, and we're going to dry hop it with Galaxy and then can that one and release it on January 26th. So that's the tentative plan right now. It's I don't know. When I look at it, it's super fun to be able to, experience people flooding the brewery and buying cans and hanging out and seeing faces that you've seen before in the market, and then seeing new people come in and hearing people talk about it and whatnot. And then we'd love to make people happy, but we're also not going to let them dictate what we do with our business necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how hard is that planning and timing too when you're using a mobile canner?
It's very challenging.
Making sure that the beer is ready and fresh the day that you have the canner scheduled.
There's been days where we're like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, put that up there. Nice shot.
There's days where Dave and I have been sitting down there at 12 a.m. Okay, hope this carbonates. But it's a living organism, so it's going to do what it wants to do, and you can only, as a brewer, provide a certain condition to allow it to do what it needs to do, and then kind of just cross your fingers. And so you got to schedule the canning date about a month ahead of time. And if anything goes wrong, we've had our chiller go down and break the day before we're supposed to can, and anything can happen. And so, like Colin was saying, there's certain things that you can put in a can that might be detrimental to your company, and I would never do that. If a beer was not going to be ready, we just would cancel the event.
Yeah.
And so there's workarounds, but still, to that point, I'm not going to make that the basis of my business if I'm constantly going to be double-checking myself.
Because there have definitely been some breweries that canned and released some stuff that had those problems.
Absolutely.
Where they definitely took a huge PR hit because the beer wasn't ready, or the beer
continues to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
People
not
travel too.
It's not dead, and there's new breweries popping up every day that are trying to get a piece of this pie. And I think in terms of what Diamondback wants to do in 2018 and moving forward is we don't want to create our own pie, but we'd like to create a different sector of the pie that we're not just trying to grab a piece of. And so, yeah, the can releases will still continue. We're not going to get rid of them. It's still fun to hang around the brewery on a Friday when we're releasing 100-plus cases. But we also have some other projects in the work that serve a little bit more the minority of the craft beer industry, really, in terms of on-premise and off-premise buying and takeaway. So, yeah, it differs from a little bit of can style, and it differs in a little bit of style of beer, but just don't really see many people necessarily doing the things that we have planned to move forward. So
give us one hint, or just tell us. You can't just be that vague about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can drop a little. We're starting a barrel program at the brewery.
Awesome.
So it'll start clean, and then we might move into doing some spontaneous fermentation stuff down the road. But we got a space that's almost done completion construction. Mm-hmm. It's adjacent to the brewery. It's climate controlled, so we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, nice. So you can keep it segregated enough, or you don't have to worry about infecting everything.
I think we have a tank in there, and we should probably get our first brew in there maybe late January or early February, and then it's kind of just like a take it by play sort of thing. Yeah. We'll see where it goes and where it evolves, and it'll just be a nice supplement to the business that not a lot of people are doing that kind of thing. It's like a more sort of artisan practice, and it takes a lot of time, and it doesn't have a lot of payoff, but it's something that we are really interested in doing.
Like when you hear bottle release versus can release, what's the majority of the market getting more excited about?
Cans.
Yeah, because they get the 4-packs, the artwork's on the outside, and they're most likely an IPA on the inside.
Yeah.
So great. I mean, it's good, it's fresh, it's new, and it's moving down the East Coast, and that's what's creating the most buzz. But there's really kick-ass beer inside of bottles as well. And that's what we want to chase a little bit. That's what we enjoy drinking, and that's what we'd like to educate our consumer base about, whoever it is, to come in. And if you'd never tried it, please try it. If you love it, well, then come and buy it and give it a try. So the project's not finished yet. We're still under construction. There is no beer in barrels. There's no beer in the tanks up in that room yet. But like Tom said, we look to pop something in by the end of January or beginning of February. And like most people say, that they say, yeah, the project's on schedule for this date, and then it might get pushed back a year.
God knows how we'll actually end up.
We'll officially say something when we're ready to actually put something in the barrels and let it go.
Yeah, I think I've been sitting here trying to think like who has like anticipated bottle releases.
In Maryland,
like local places. Can't think of anyone.
Well, Union
Bourbon County Stout is really the only bottled beer
Union
that
does the Chessie. I guess that's probably one of the only real ones around this area.
Yeah,
they'll do the Chessie in the bottles. They've started to do the can releases a little bit more. Just
they've
take a little
to
slice of the pie.
Yep.
But
although they've been vocally against that.
Well, yeah, Blodge has said some things that are definitely a little bit against it. But like, I don't know, when you realize the success of it, they've got some good graphic design artists there to speak on behalf of them, and they are certainly they've got some steam going for their company in the past couple of years, and more recent with their new brewery that's under construction right now. So. They've got a concept that's unlike any other, but yeah, they have definitely attached on to a little bit of the green machine or the can release side of things. But yeah, I mean,
I guess the closest would be Trogue's Grand Cru version of Mad Elf when it came out. That was.
Have you heard of Soul Ales yet? They're up in Easton, PA. They do like a society where they have, people who have bought into this bottle release program. Some of them are good and some of them need a little bit of work, but they're doing some bottle releases that we've noticed, and we've picked up on that on the Instagram topic. We've picked up on them on Instagram, and then people bringing in their bottles to try as well. So great branding by them. Really awesome company, just out on the eastern side of Pennsylvania. And they certainly do the IPA versions as well. But they've done this bottle release program, that is definitely catching some success on the East Coast, so kudos to them.
Now, you guys have your own society too, right? The smokes...
We have a club, sort of. Okay. It's not quite like you're not promised any beer or anything like that. It's just like you get every Wednesday we do $4.50 20-ounce fills, and then you get like 20% off merch and stuff like that.
Cool.
It's awesome because when I lived out west, I went into this brewery all the time, Snake River Brewing Company, and there were people always carrying around 20-ounce mugs, and you're thinking, what is that? And you start asking questions, and the same thing happens. People come into our brewery and they say, why does he have a 20-ounce mug? And then you start explaining them to them, and they're like, they live in the area. It makes more sense for them to get a 20-ounce fill for a 16-ounce price and get cheaper drafts on Wednesdays. And then Tom does some awesome programs every couple of months where we release a new beer. He wants to actually sit down in front of everybody and speak with them about the program that they're in, or just something about a new style coming out, or
it's like the education thing that we've been talking about so much. Is like an educated consumer is the best consumer you're going to have. So like, why not make it fun and talk about different hops, talk about different styles of beer that people haven't necessarily had, and so that's a platform for us to do that.
Yeah, so and I mean, adding your spontaneous fermentation, that's going to have a huge component of education that you're going to have to give.
Yeah,
absolutely. That whole
to yourself as well.
Yeah,
to the public.
That whole what is sour beer thing, I think the vast majority of people don't really.
Well, they think it's raspberry puree and a kettle sour in a 16-ounce can, but there's such another side to that it will be an education thing for us as well as the consumer.
So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be cool.
Yeah,
it's still a little ways away, but it'll get there. I feel.
Well, hopefully I'll make it out before then. Well, actually, maybe I'll come out for the 26th. It'll be the first can release I ever attend.
Yeah, please do.
I've never gone to a can release at a brewery before because.
Props to you, man.
Yeah.
I'm very adverse to standing in line for things other than just like a few people deep at a register.
Well, yeah. Companies have instituted the ticket system.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, which definitely clears headaches for them getting backlash. I didn't get in. I stood in line for this long. Burley Oak has settled it down by saying this is what your allotment is. Depending on where you are in line, so that was smart breaking it down like that.
When I went there over the summer, it was early summer. They said they really struggle with how to handle that.
Right.
That they didn't quite feel like the ticket system was the way to go because then then it brings in the aspect of people from out of the area buying tickets and having someone mule or ship the beer to them, and they want local people to be able to get it. But then the same thing, people still just drive forever and stand in line. So I can see how while it's very attractive, that it still presents a lot of problems, both in your head and probably logistically for a brewery. There's a lot of upside, but still some
I mean, is the beer necessarily going to be ready by the time we want to release it?
Yeah, there's a big part of it, too.
How many cases are we going to get? What's our yield? And then
I mean, it's exhausting, too. Like, it's all hands on deck day. Like, when we do can releases, it's like you get there at 10 a.m. and you leave at 1 in the morning, and that's, like, the whole staff. It's, like, exhausting.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's great to see so many people coming in and enjoying this product that you've made. And lining up to do it, but how sustainable is it is really
exactly
a little bit more of our mantra.
So who does your graphic design? Because
what are you looking at?
Well, maybe just your logos and stuff. So like I'm a huge fan of just clean, simple design. So like it's so just simple, but I love it. It's great. Just I don't know what you call that figure, but
the triple cross thing.
Yeah. But then even like some of your cans, because I know Hop Broth had its own. I think maybe that's the only can I've seen.
Oof.
Yeah. So we have a sketch artist, Sam Hagley. So I'll send him an idea and kind of just let him run with it. He always comes back with like the most ridiculous drawings ever, and so I just drop that into a can label, and it's good to go. And then Gillett Press from like the Hamden area did our actual logo, like the triple cross shield thing, and then I just back clean up and kind of put things where they need to be in Illustrator and make it look good. But
you designed that full can.
I did do the Crowler label,
I like that.
But like I said, I'm basically just taking like somebody else's design and putting it where it needs to be.
It's kind of nice how you snuck Steeler colors into
don't
Baltimore.
even start.
Yeah, we said that when we were doing that. We were like, gold and black, don't know.
Yeah. No, it's nice. We really want, and that metallic shines off that label too. I don't know. I'm not going to stick to just straight Baltimore, you know? Like, there are people that are coming from far out to get the beer as well, so not necessarily going to stick to it. But are you from Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in
that's
Pittsburgh.
What the dig was there. Yeah.
So do you guys have anything else you want to plug or talk about that you have coming up before we wrap up?
No. I mean, other than just like, we'd look to expand a little bit of production, but obviously we're still in the works of talking about how to do that. The barrel room, like we discussed, the can release this month, January 26th. And then just really developing a solid brand inside of Baltimore. We obviously want you to visit the brewery. We want everybody to come and hang out in the tap room and really experience what Diamondback has to offer Wednesday through Sunday. But if you're also out in the market and you see us on tap, definitely give us a try if you haven't. There are plenty of fans out there and beer drinkers who look for it and drink it when it's on tap.
I know the people of Frederick would love to see it on tap.
I know. Yeah. I got three Sixels in the car right now that we're dropping off to Wants, and that'll hit some accounts out here. I had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago, so we just are looking to get a little bit more product out here because Frederick has a really nice beer scene. Especially in
it's the craft beer capital of the East Coast.
Yeah. Some people have, what do they call it, the Napa Valley of beer?
Yeah.
I think Rob Goss, be a guy, calls it that. So, do you want to hit, Chris?
Yes, I do. Once more.
Might as well, right?
Okay, Graham, how we doing over there?
Empty.
Graham's been nursing for a little while over there.
He purposely gets neglected.
Womp womp.
All right, so now my group of questions I try to remember to always ask at the end.
Yes, sir.
What is your favorite Diamondback beer? Tom goes first, and don't give me the which is your favorite children excuse. You have a favorite and you know it.
No, I do. So, honestly, I'm going to say Greener Machine is my favorite beer because of kind of the whole backstory on it. It was like we wanted to do a once-a-year beer, and we wanted to make it interesting and different, and so we took the Green Machine recipe and just blasted the hell out of it. And
Greenered it.
Became Greenered it, yeah. But it's just like the whole culture behind the day is so much fun. We all had a blast last year, and the beer is great, and it's highly alcoholic, so people have a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of like my baby, and I really appreciate that beer.
Colin.
Cold Taxi. That's my favorite Zwickel Keller hybrid beer that I like to drink.
That was a close second for me.
Yeah. Tom and I, he actually, like, Tom may not, Dave will be brewing one day, and I'll be like, Tom, what are you doing? And he's like, well, nothing really. And I'm like, you want to go ride around for some sales or visit some accounts? So I got to drop a keg off here because we do self-distribute. So Hub is our main self-distro guy. Shout out to Hub Galing. Cool guy. Definitely mans the wheel for us on the van. But
so do you self-distribute in Baltimore County? And then
we do Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Hartford, Cecil, Montgomery, Anne Arundel, Howard, and D.C.
Okay.
Yeah. We have distributors in the rest of the state. So, but more to the point in talking about that is Tom and I will just get on a ball just talking about different styles that we see out in the market, and then more styles that we've done that we haven't really brought back that might be a little bit more challenging to make a year-round style. I'd love to see Cold Taxi year-round. It's just tough with the lager yeast. I know when we talked to the union guys, they wanted Skipjack to be something that was consistently year-round, but it took a little while to get to that point.
Yeah.
And same with us. I mean, I'm not saying it will happen, but with that being my favorite style that we brew and my favorite beer that we brew, because it's got this big fruity aroma from the dry hop, and then just a nice, clean, crisp lager, light, golden body to it. So I'd like to see that one come back a little bit more often, but we'll see what 2018 has in store for us.
Are you going to go to Zadie's birthday party?
On the 13th? I'll see if I'm free. What, Zay-Day?
Yeah, Zay-Day.
Yeah. That guy packaged 80,000. He repacked,
folded
folded 80,000 boxes. Like, that guy's
machine.
a beast.
It's
I don't know,
amazing.
98-year-old that
Yeah,
can do
January
that.
13th.
Yeah. So I might do that. But we'll see. I like popping up there every once in a while.
The oldest brewery worker in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. It's probably not even close.
Yeah, it's going to catch on pretty soon. Everybody's going to love to go up there and actually meet the guy probably.
I also love following Union Jenna on Instagram to see her daily coffee delivery to Zadie.
Yep.
He's always surprised every time he gets it.
It happens every day. But
He's like, oh, no way.
I think it actually may have been on Shelfies with the beer guy where they were talking to him about it, and she said that someone who's in their 90s deserves to have coffee brought to them.
Yeah.
I don't want to fall asleep while packing cardboard.
All right. Favorite Maryland beer?
Ooh, wow.
Well, okay. So no, you can't say anyone's offended about one of your favorite Maryland beers. And, of course, you love them all. This is just not in any particular order, one that you like.
Well, I can't wait for Sapwood Cellars to open up. That's one that I'm excited to see. But my favorite Maryland, or one of my favorite Maryland beers? Tom, can I defer to you for a quick sec?
Sure,
all
yeah.
Right.
I mean, we don't, honestly, we don't really get to drink that much local beer. We get so much beer brought to us outside of Maryland, which is kind of a shame. There's so many good breweries around the area that it should be the opposite of that. But I don't know. We were over drinking at Suspended Brewing the other night.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of stuff about them lately.
Yeah, I mean, they're 5-minute drive from us, so it's cool to see a brewery doing a similar style beer to us. And he poured us a couple of his IPAs and a session stout he had, and I mean, they're pretty spot on. So for a guy who's just getting started, I'm pretty excited to see where he goes, especially in our neighborhood like that.
I'm pretty excited to see the way that goes, too. I don't know. I'll list a couple, I guess. I enjoy drinking RARs. It's not the business type that I would have, but I do enjoy drinking RER when it comes in because there's something always new from them.
Yeah.
So you've got something new to taste from them.
And you just have to love the can artwork too.
Yeah.
I especially love how they're on the 90s kick lately.
Well, it's like when you were in school.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
That Cutie Catcher, John Voight.
Seems like it's a whole series coming out with the paper or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going geographically throughout my... Attaboy's got some good stuff out here, and I love their branding too. That's just a cool company as well.
Yeah.
When you talk about companies around the state of Maryland and some of them are pretty young or run by people who are pretty young or middle-aged, and then some are a little bit older. But it was a husband and wife team that went all in.
And the Cushman IPAs were good, too. We had a couple of those come in the tap room. I really enjoyed those. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty dominated by the IPA. I'd like to see a little bit more of the lager spectrum come out.
I would say in Frederick, Old Mother and Monocacy / Brewers Alley probably do the most in the non-IPA sectors.
Yeah. Was that the Old Mother that you had on Instagram the other day of their system getting installed?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think you said like the mother is installed or something like that, or
yeah,
mother.
Graham and I stood out in the cold for way too long waiting for it to be delivered. Then it to be.
Yeah, luckily our system came in the summer. It was nice.
Yeah, we can't get that thing out of there.
Theirs came in when it was very, very, very cold.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the brewing industry goes in Maryland, especially with this new law that doesn't necessarily affect us a whole lot. I mean, right now it doesn't. I'm sure it could affect us 10 years down the line, deciding whatever they do. But I would just like to see people kind of push the boundaries on some things, and not so far that you're really screwing things up and making a bad name, but more so like, making what you guys like to drink, or that brewery likes to drink, and getting to us and trying it out, and then also just keep doing the same thing that everybody has kind of a different piece of the style pie here, and it's fun to see what is coming out from Maryland.
So, what is the most ridiculous review you've ever received?
Oh my God!
I think I saw one a while ago that I think we had like
to it more than I do.
I don't really pay that much attention to it, but like
Francis pays attention.
Yeah, Francis, he'll know. But I think there was one that said like one of our beers tasted like chicken wings and ranch or something like that.
How do you even pull those flavors?
Like, we're not Vail. Like we didn't add any chicken wings.
Right.
Actually,
Glad you got something from it.
We don't really see anything ridiculous. It's just everybody has their like the Green Machine in the tap room could taste like not completely different, but it could taste a little bit different from what it might be, what it might be out in the market somewhere at a different place. What temperature it was served at, what was on the line before, those sorts of things. So I haven't seen anything like super ridiculous. Something's come through and it kind of pisses you off. But then you're just like, get off Untapped.
Yeah, it's like, why am I looking at this right now?
Right, or just get off something else that might kind of like you're sending yourself down a rabbit hole that isn't necessarily the truth about your company. You can go look
at our Yelp reviews too. People will be like, I walked in here and there were 3 dogs. I'm not spending my time here. Like,
but there was when we had the Line Distilling episode, he said the example he gave was that that it was something like someone in the background, most likely the owner, I felt like they were judging me.
God.
Yeah, people get in their own heads, man. They really do.
Sometimes like we'll all be in the brewery on a Friday, and I don't know, a couple of Fridays ago we had a couple of really nice bottles of port, and we were like drinking them around the backside of the stack, and some people were like why are you guys broing out over there, just drinking all your fancy wines over there? We're like, sorry, like we weren't purposefully doing this. Someone just brought it in at some point. So I don't know. Sometimes if you're like hanging out and getting jolly behind the bar, people can get a little bit offended. But
no, I've brought it up several times, but I still think although Gunda had some great ones that he mentioned, like when they came out with Trumpkin.
Oh yeah.
Like just Trump fans being completely pissed off, leaving fake ones. Those were some good ones. But I still think the winner is Old Mother's that started out with, have you ever been someplace you just know won't be around in a year?
Yeah, what's that guy doing now, right?
Yeah. Probably not expanding a brewery and moving into a much larger.
It's when somebody says that, all you can do is just respond with kindness.
Yeah.
Like, I apologize. Or
That's why I just scanned through. I don't know why I don't do this beforehand to look. Especially asking distilleries, because every distillery in Maryland, it's all 5-star reviews. It's getting that question is useless to most of them. It's like anyone who tries a spirit just loves it. There aren't any of the super critical like beer fans,
right?
Yeah.
But I do like you went through anyone who deserved a response, at least from glancing through here. You guys address anyone that has a complaint.
Francis is really good about like the customer service kind of side of the business, so he always is like looking to right any wrongs.
Yeah, some of these clients are like they don't deserve a response.
Yeah, exactly.
Just keep it PC or don't say anything. If it demands some sort of immediate attention that like you have to ask some questions, like what exactly went wrong, then just private message.
Yeah.
And just keep it private that way so that you don't start a huge disorder on,
I
social
deleted
media.
my Facebook because I was just sick of seeing it.
You were going to say something.
I was like,
to
I don't
somebody,
need to see
and
this
then-
anymore, so I just deleted it.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for trekking
thanks,
out
guys.
during the polar vortex, bomb, hurricane, snow apocalypse, or whatever we just experienced. It's been great. I loved. Sorry we didn't make it to Green Machine.
You can keep
Yeah,
it.
it's yours.
I will enjoy that tonight.
Yeah.
I loved Scott Van Pelt. That was amazing. Omar was great, but Scott Van Pelt was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you guys for coming out.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
everyone
us.
for watching and listening.
Thanks, Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Graham.
Cheers.
Cheers.